Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Your Forest Podcast, episode 6. Today I've got Anne Normand on. She is the program manager at Work Wild. Work Wild is a nonprofit organization. They provide service to the forest industry in the form of promotion and trying to get people interested, kind of pretty similar to this podcast. They're well recognized and respected, and they are supported by mainly the Forest Products Association of Alberta, as well as FRIA, the Forest Resource Improvement Association of Alberta. And without their funding, those things wouldn't be possible. So we'll get right into what Work Wild is. You guys call it a campaign.
Or a public outreach program.
So a nonprofit organization, you guys are trying to get information out there about forestry jobs, forestry careers, kind of everything related to it, right? So we're gonna get right into it, I guess, and just start talking about kind of what it is you guys do, and like how you got started, all that kind of.
Sure.
Where your passion comes from.
So the program was launched in January of 2011 in response to an industry labor shortage.
Right.
The industry was having a difficult time attracting labor.
Yeah.
One of the major reasons was competition with other industries, especially the oil and gas industry. While forestry pays quite well, it just can't compete with oil and gas wages.
Yeah.
And then also there are some misconceptions about the industry. People thought it was low paying, low tech, environmentally unfriendly, and a sunset industry. And
that's kind of the word around the water cooler, right? Like it's I've heard people say stuff like, "Oh, I remember my parents had some family friends over one time, and this one guy, this young man, he was my parents asked him, well, what do you want to get into? Like, what do you want to do after high school or whatever, right? And he's like, first thing he said, literally, I don't think he knew what my parents did because they're both foresters, right? But he's like, I don't want to be something stupid like a forester, like I'm not a dumb lumberjack or whatever, right? He said something about being old school and not like exactly what you said, like low tech and all that, right? So it's kind of, it was kind of funny. I kept my mouth shut. I was like, I don't want to get into this right now. This he's young. He doesn't know what he's talking about. It's fine. But that's kind of the word, right? People think that, like, even for myself, when I got into forestry and I tell my friends about it, they still don't know what I do. They have no idea. And like we can get into that later. Actually, I'll talk a little bit about it, but it's definitely not low tech. That's for sure.
No, there's some really cool innovations and high tech equipment and technologies going on in forestry. Sure. But like you say, it's not even just about informing people about the jobs. It's about informing them about the truth about the industry. It's addressing misconceptions and letting them know how innovative it is, but also how environmentally responsible it is. Yeah.
You want to just move the mic just like right in front of your face, just directly in front. So like you can pull the whole thing. Yeah, there you go. Perfect. There we go. Yeah, these mics are sensitive. I always have that problem with people. Just like, hey, just do this. I'm sorry, but it is uncomfortable. I know it's weird, but
I'll
anyways.
Get used to
it. So that's awesome. So 2011, so it happened kind of after the like economic crash and all that, and it's interesting that's when you guys kind of found your stride there. That's cool. Yeah. It's that's I know even the university has problem with enrollment in that, and I think honestly I think it's the word forestry.
Yeah.
I think people see that word and they're just like, oh, like you're just like cutting down trees, huh? Like you're the bad guys from Avatar, just like decimating a landscape and like you're no care for anything else but profit, right? Or like local like habitat or the indigenous people or whatever, right? Like it's that's honestly what I think it is, because I know in the university when AILS, the faculty of AILS, that's they have all the agriculture, land and environment, forestry and all that stuff, right? They started the environmental sciences program. So they started the conservation biology and then land reclamation. And forestry was pretty big. And then all of a sudden those opened up and people kind of went there. And those are awesome things as well. But I think they went there out of a thought of like, I'm going to save the planet, so I'll go into this. Whereas like forestry is doing the opposite of that, but it's not. It's the same thing. It's just, it's got a bad rap, I think, from just back in the day when I guess maybe we weren't replanting at the turn of the century and like stuff like that, but it was yeah, it's definitely not what people, the misconceptions that people think it is, right? It's a totally sustainable, totally renewable resource, and we're like doing a really good job at it. Like we're like, you look at the forest industry in Canada, like we're world renowned for being, for doing really, really good work. So yeah.
But we just don't tell our story.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point behind this podcast, right? Is that foresters as a whole are so quiet about what they do, and no one really wants to talk about it. No one wants to speak up, or not low tech, but like just kind of, we don't want the attention.
Low key,
yeah. And so people don't get involved with media, and they don't get involved with kind of putting the information out there. They're just kind of like to sit back and just like, if I'm quiet, I can do what I do and not worry about what people think, right? But that's a problem, because then we kind of fall behind the curtain, and people will think whatever they want, and it can be untrue, right? So yeah, a company like Work Wild is awesome, because you guys are reaching out to like so many people and to young people, and kind of getting the information out there early, right? And that's kind of, I think we have kind of a like synergistic relationship, like with the podcast and Work Wild. Work Wild being a lot more recognized in my podcast, but we'll see. We'll get there. So yeah, I'm it's awesome to have you on and talk about this. So what do you guys kind of, how did you get started? What was the kind of first thing that you guys did?
So I wasn't around.
Okay.
I was not there for the first year and a half. It was Cam Rollins, who's a forester here in Alberta, that started off the program. But really just started going to lots of events at universities, also going to high schools. We go into about over 100 schools.
Oh, really? Wow.
The province each year. And then also we have a lot of resources online. So we've got our website with a job board that we update regularly.
Yep.
I just updated it yesterday, and it's actually at the highest it's been for quite a while.
Nice.
In the last couple of years, with the state of our economy in Alberta, a lot of people have come over to forestry from oil and gas.
Right.
And so vacancies have filled much more quickly. But
Yeah.
our job board has, I think I have 45 positions up there right now. So
That's awesome.
lots
That's
of
a lot.
opportunities. Also on our website, we've got scholarships. I think there's about $200,000 worth of scholarships listed up there.
That's pretty good.
And then, yeah, no kidding. Like, people want to pay you money to go to school.
Yeah.
And then career profiles. We have over 40 career profiles,
Yep.
and each one will explain what you do in a job, what you need for training,
Yeah.
where to get it, and approximately how much money you can expect to make.
Right.
And then for some of those, I've also interviewed people. We interviewed you at one point and
Yeah.
done extended profiles on specific jobs, so people can really dig into what a day in the life of, say, a chemical engineer or a silviculture forester looks
Yeah.
like in forestry.
Yeah, no, it's all on there. It's an awesome website. It's easily navigable, and it's all on there. It's good. Yeah, I think it's kind of the first of its kind too, right? Like, as far as I know, there's not a lot of really, like, some of the old websites, for example, there's some ones out there that are so outdated. Like, I think they started in 98 and they're just kind of had never been updated, and they look kind of rough, and it's nice to see something fresh and new, and that, that someone clearly takes pride in, right? And wants to make sure that the right message is getting out there for the right reason, and it looks good.
Yeah, some of the other provinces do have some outreach programs related to jobs, but they're not as robust. They're not getting into the schools as much. They're not quite as extensive. But I've received calls, actually just one last week from Ontario and a while back from BC, and they are looking at potentially modeling a program after the Work Wild program or something similar, because they like what we're doing here in Alberta.
Oh, it's awesome. It's a huge program, and it's just getting bigger and bigger, it seems like. So that's awesome.
Yeah, we are actually. We just are in the process of hiring a third person. So
nice.
We started at one, and then we grew to two, and now we'll have a third person starting this fall.
That's awesome. Getting bigger.
Yeah,
that's good. Getting the word out there. Yeah.
Yeah, this person will be in charge of Southern Alberta, and we've done a decent amount of outreach in Southern Alberta, but just we don't have the capacity to be down there very often. So now we'll have someone based in Calgary reaching out to the youth of the South. And we've found that a lot of people going into especially forest management programs are coming from urban communities. And so we need to be reaching out to those students.
Yeah. How do they find out about that? I was just talking to a coworker earlier today actually about that. He grew up in the city, and I'm always curious about how people find this career, because it's, like I said, it's not, I mean, it's highly responsible for a lot of economic activity in the province, all the forests that are out there. Like, it's all very important work, but we don't talk about it. So how do people find out about it? So it's interesting that yeah, I always wonder how the people in the cities figure it out. They're not seeing logging trucks every day, right? They're not seeing whatever it is. Like, they're not talking to foresters. Don't live near mills or anything like that. So they don't get that opportunity to kind of ask those questions.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's relieving to hear. I mean, in small communities, you have places like my mom. She's a forest educator out of Slave Lake, and she does the Slave Lake, High Prairie, Wabasca kind of area. And so like they all get that information, but they all also know that it exists, right? But they get more informed after that. But places like the cities, like Edmonton and Calgary, they don't have that exposure. So I imagine it takes a lot of time and effort to get that information out there for those kids, right? And get them to understand that, it's not just a bunch of lumberjacks out there chopping down trees and taking the money and run.
Yeah. But yeah, if you look at the numbers going into the U of A forestry program, for example, it's significantly Edmonton and surrounding areas. So there's interest from the urban kids, but if there's already that much interest, just imagine, like you say, how many don't know that these jobs exist, and if we can tell them about it, how many of them might consider it as a career opportunity.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's kind of what I was thinking too, is that, I mean, there's a lot of people out there, I think, right now that may even be listening or whatever. They're in a job that kind of they don't really want to do, or they're not really passionate about, or they don't really see the point, right? They're kind of phoning it in, and like that's unfortunate. It sucks, and it's a hard thing to try and figure it out. I mean, especially right out of high school, like how are you supposed to know? You don't even know who you are. How are you supposed to know what you want to do, right? Like, but I think it's forestry and the forestry sector and the outdoor industry, like it's a whole area that I think people overlook, and especially people in the cities. And it's unfortunate, but it's there, and there's so many options. Like I said, like you were saying before, there's forestry, there's land reclamation, conservation biology. There's like, you can be a ranger, you can be a whatever biologist. There's a million different things. Electrician, a welder, all these kind of things are all out there doing stuff in the bush rather than being in an office, right? Although I have an office job, I'm in the office most of the time, but it's still, I'm passionate about my work. I like what I'm doing. I know that what I'm doing is making a difference to something I care about, right? And I think that's it's a difficult message to get through to people, right? I mean, especially kids, because they're told all the time, like, oh, do what you want, but they don't know what's out there, I guess, right? They think like, oh, they're told to be a dentist or an engineer or and like, there's nothing wrong with any of those things, but if that's not what you want to do, then what? So it's important work for sure to get out there and kind of teach people what's available.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the trades too, because while there's a lot on the environmental side and the forest management side, more than half of our job board is power engineers, chemical, electrical engineers, tradespeople, like millwrights. There's always several millwright positions and electricians, heavy-duty mechanics. So it's a lot broader than a lot of people realize. Even I just posted in a position for an accountant yesterday. Yeah. So you could be in many faculties in university, or not even in university, many different types of training programs, and find yourself in forestry. I'm an education and communications grad, and
gotcha.
I'm working in forestry here.
Yeah, it's funny. You never know where you're going to wind up in the end, right? Like, all those things are applicable. Like, you can be an accountant for a mill or for a consultant, or you can be all these different things, right? Yeah, it's all available, but people don't. Yeah, I guess they don't really know, right? Like, it's hard to find that information. So it's good to have a company like yours, out there doing that work. So it's good. Maybe we can. I don't know, maybe we'll talk about kind of some of those jobs that are out there, right? So like some of the job profiles you've done that you think, or maybe I'll start off. I'll talk about my job, kind of discuss the technology there and stuff, right? So kind of briefly in kind of layman's terms, I do it's Alberta vegetation inventory, right? I know you came in, was that just over a year ago? We were talking about it, right? Yep. And you got to see kind of some of the tech that we use. And what I do is the company, we contract out a flight contractor to fly imagery and LiDAR, 3D aerial imagery. So you can imagine kind of if you're on Google Maps, it looks kind of like that, but way more resolution, right? And then LiDAR is light detection and ranging. So it's essentially a pulse being shot, kind of like radar, kind of shooting down a pulse, and they're getting returns, right? It'll give you elevation differences. And we'll take all that information, turn it into tree heights and the ground, and kind of use all of that photography in the LiDAR to create an inventory of the forest and kind of everything that's entailed, right? So it's yeah, it's high tech work. It's really interesting. You get to see the forest from a super interesting perspective I don't think a lot of people get, and kind of how it's all related and how all of these fens and all of these rivers and everything kind of comes together, and it's all one ecosystem. It's all part of the same thing. It's not just like individual pieces kind of meshed together like a puzzle, right? It's all one big mosaic, right? And it's interesting to see it from that perspective. I think it's super valuable. Because we're going into things, we can see things like how wet or how dry something is, how much nutrients is in the ground, how tall trees are, if there's understory, composition, kind of. There's lots to go into it. I can go on forever, but I never know how to quite explain what I do to people. It's confusing, and some people just kind of start rolling their eyes, and I don't blame them. But it's not for everybody. But it's more of a pre-planning role, right? And it's getting so that we can have, if we have a good inventory. These inventories are being done for mills and for the government and for any kind of manager that's managing a landscape, right? And if they have a good inventory, they know exactly what's on their land base. They can model it and they can grow it properly, and they can know exactly what's going on, and they can have better management for that, right? So that's what I do for the most part, and it's an interesting job. It's mostly in the office. We do field work. We get out there and kind of get calibrated with the world, right? But it's not a job I ever thought I would be doing in forestry. I got into forestry to kind of be outside, but I realized that the planning aspect of it is really important as well, right? And I think that's kind of where I'm gearing myself towards. But
do you get to work with drones at all?
Actually, yeah. Tom, a guy that works here, he is looking into the drone thing. He's flying a lot of drones with imagery, and it's an interesting concept, and it definitely has its uses. Like, it's very high resolution, and it definitely has a possibility to be used in the forest industry. They use it a lot in like oil and gas and stuff because it is so high resolution. You can see like blades of grass, and you can identify like vegetation species from that, right? So for reclamation purposes, that's really important. Instead of having to go out there, you can send a drone out and it'll do it all for you, right? But drones have limitations. Like, you have to be within like a kilometer of them, I think. They can't fly very high. Not that they can't, but they're not allowed to because of flight rules and stuff like that, right? So there's a lot of limitations there. But I think as time goes on, it's only going to become more lucrative a process, because it's definitely super interesting. Like, some of the models that Tom will fly, it's perfect 3D models of, like, it's got not only the color, but also like everything that's going on. It basically looks like a video game when you're looking at it online, right, or on the computer. It's feasible. I don't think it's quite there yet. Like, there's bits and parts that you could definitely use, but for right now, fixed wing aircraft is the best. They're just an airplane because it flies so much area in so short a time, and the resolution is already really good. We can get down to like 8 centimeter resolution, right? So the size of a coffee cup type thing. Whereas the drone gets down way more than that, but it's not really necessary, right? Unless you're trying to do really intricate work. So maybe you're trying to do like a caribou reclamation program. So you're flying old pipelines and disturbances. Then that might give you some more information that could be useful, but it's exciting though. It is something that I want to try and get into, and because you never know where it might end up, right?
And I imagine more cost effective too than an airplane.
Well, you'd think, right? But the efficiency of it, because it's such small scale, right, compared to an airplane, it's definitely cheaper to do an airplane. If you're trying to do like fly a large area, if you're trying to fly a small area, if you're just looking for like a few hectares, then absolutely, if you go out there, fly a drone, like you're going to get more information. It's going to be better, right? I think for like construction purposes, like around the cities and stuff like that, if you're trying to expand, a drone would be perfect, because you can get all the contours like specifically mapped out, and kind of all the vegetation, and know where the kind of the wetter spots are, and it'd be really cheap, right? Whereas to get an airplane to do that, it would cost a bunch of money. But it depends on the scale of the project, right?
Right, because if you're having to operate within a kilometer of the drone, then you're needing to follow it all the way through. And if it's a large area, that's going to...
And they only fly for like 20 minutes at a time, right? Like, you might be able to get... Like, there's a few drones out there. Like, we have some of the cheaper ones, like I don't know how much they're, but tens of thousands maybe. But you can get hundreds of thousands of dollar drones for civilian use, right? Like, I mean, you can get those Predator drones or whatever. They can go across the world, but I don't think we can afford one of those. A couple billion or whatever. But... the scale gets or as the technology catches up with civilization, I think we might end up being that way eventually. I could see in in 20 years, instead of having an aircraft do it, you have a drone flying all the imagery, right? Because it's instant, right? But it's right now, we still stick with aircraft, but the drones are definitely up and coming. It's definitely interesting, and if you're interested in that kind of stuff, it's this could be a good place to be for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of up and coming neat things going on in forest.
What's the thing?
Now.
The technology is changing so fast, right? It's hard to keep up.
Yeah. Like there's the wood plastic composites.
That's a cool one.
The lignin. There's so many neat things going on.
Yeah, wood plastic. Like, do you know a lot about? I don't know a lot about. I was listening to some of the videos on Work Wild this morning. Actually, just kind of I was like trying to get in the right headspace for this, and they were talking about the wood plastic composites or whatever, and I was like, well, I should look into that because I don't know anything about that. So
I don't know a lot, but I know a little bit. So I went to Alberta Innovates a few years back and had a chat with one of the engineers there.
Right.
And she was just telling me about it. They've done a lot of research into it, and so they basically break down the wood to its nanofibers, and they can replace the petroleum in plastic with wood. And so it's a fully renewable resource then.
That's crazy.
And you get essentially the same product. It only real differences are it tends to be lighter, but just as strong. And it doesn't have the same chemical smell.
Right.
But otherwise, it functions just the same. And I believe Ford is using the wood plastic composites with some of their interior parts for their cars now.
That's cool.
And there's other uses. If you look up Thrive Plastics, there's some videos online that explain the process and some of the applications for it.
That's cool. Yeah, no, I definitely want to try and get somebody on that knows a lot about that. It's really interesting. I don't know anything about it at all. Like I remember like Sunchip made that like the biodegradable bag back in the day, and it was supposedly wood fiber, but it was like they got rid of it because it was the loudest thing ever.
Oh.
it was like super annoying, like 10 times louder than a normal plastic bag. But the renewable or the applications of that, of like wood fiber in places where people wouldn't expect, it's actually really huge. Like even I think the first Ford vehicle, its side panels and stuff were all made of hemp fiber, which is very similar to wood. So like technically speaking, you could make vehicle bodies out of wood, right? I don't know how like the safety procedures of that would be or like any of the implications, right? But I think people see wood as like, oh, I can get like paper and like a table, but that's about it. And it's like, well, no, there's a lot of applications, and it's a renewable resource. I was trying to talk about that in one of the previous podcasts, how as far as I know anyways, wood is the only truly renewable building resource we have on the planet. Just because of the scale or the time, kind of the rotation time it takes for trees to grow, right? So it takes 100 years for trees to grow, and they kind of are replenishing the soil as things go along. The soil is getting all the nutrients back into it, and then we can remove the trees, and it's not a big deal, right? Whereas like in an agricultural system with like, say you're trying to use hemp is an awesome, supposedly it's a superior fiber to wood. Supposedly it's got like a lot of interesting properties, but again, you run into the problem of sustainability. It's not a truly sustainable. It needs inputs to make it grow, right? Whereas the forest will do it on its own, and it's not hurting anything. You know what I mean? We're keeping intact all the habitat, all water. We're managing this as if we were natural disturbance, right? We're trying to make sure that what we're doing is appropriate and lasts for ages, right? We don't want people to think that we're going out there like the bad guys from Avatar and just like destroying it and just like, yeah, we got the money, let's get out of here, right? We're good to go. So that's an interesting one. I should try and find somebody that knows a lot about those kind of those different wood products, right? Those up and coming wood products that are really.
I think I have someone for you.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah,
that would be
I'll
awesome.
Some people you can talk to. I went and at FP Innovations, I went there and they showed me all these really cool innovations, and they know all the science behind it.
That's what I need. I need really exactly those people. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And you bring up building materials. There's also so much innovation in building materials, like with cross laminated timber, for example.
Yeah.
And UBC's one of their student residences is, I think it's the tallest wood building in Canada. I'm not sure how high it is, but it's pretty high. And it's beautiful. And it's other than the elevator shafts, it's entirely wood structure.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's crazy. Like it's I guess it flows better with the wind and stuff like that. And how tall is it? Do you know?
I don't know. I've seen pictures. I would guess somewhere around 15, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy though. If you think about
yeah.
being like, and just like it's taller than most trees are, right? Like that. So it's interesting that it's not one solid piece of wood. It's a bunch. Everything's all laminated together. So they make all kinds of. I'll just touch on that quickly. So I think the public probably doesn't know. Lumber nowadays, we're not stuck to having fixed boards and stuff from one tree and having a tree that's 100 meters long to try and make a board for like a rafter or something like that. There's Sundry, Sundry does the laminated veneer lumber, and they'll take stuff, they'll make like plywood veneer and they'll glue it all together and they'll just keep going forever. They can make it as long as you want, right? And it's super 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 strong. It's actually really impressive. So they can pretty much engineer anything you want, right? You come up with it in your head, you can make it. It's interesting the applications of that, all that kind of stuff.
And some of them, especially one concern a lot of people have with wood is they say, oh, it's going to burn down.
Yeah.
But like cross-laminated timber, for example, is so thick that it creates a fire resistance because at a certain point that wood's going to char and prevent the fire from continuing to spread. Or it takes a long time to spread through. Fire doesn't start that quickly on wood. It takes a while, and if it's that thick, it really does create some fire resistance. Whereas some other materials will melt in that kind of a heat.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, all that kind of stuff would there's aluminum in here, and there's aluminum's like melts super quick, right? And it'll just kind of crumble, and then the whole structure is at risk, right? And wood burns too, right? But yeah, like you said, those really thick beams, like if you look at forest fires, if you drive through like maybe BC or through anywhere in Alberta where there's a forest fire, you can see there's all these trees still standing, right? What's burnt off is the branches because they're small and they catch fire quickly, but the trees, the boles are still there. Exactly like you said, right? They they didn't act like a break there because it's just a tree in the middle and there's lots of fuel around it, right? But yeah, same idea. They didn't burn because of that, right? So yeah, that's an argument. I wonder what the kind of the comparison is for that. It's interesting.
Yeah, there's online you can find the stats for products like CTL or CLT on how long it takes, how many minutes or hours they're fire resistant.
Okay. So I guess they've done that work. Yeah, they want to have that information on hand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
So and it's also quite flexible too. I've seen there's this video online, and it's an earthquake simulation, and they do it with a wood building just to show how much more flexible it is than some other materials.
Really?
And it can withstand a lot of movement because of that flexibility.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That's how trees don't fall down, right? Or how they don't break in the middle of a lot of windstorms, right? Because they move a lot, right? Same thing with buildings. I don't think people realize that the buildings like downtown, you got like an 80-story building or something like that. It's not a fixed structure. It has to give with wind. Otherwise, it's just going to break and you're going to have falling buildings, right? So, yeah, that's cool. No, it's interesting.
Yeah, and this doesn't sound at all related to careers, but I think it's important to talk about this stuff because in order to get people interested in these careers, they need to know the exciting things that are going on in the industry.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Like you said, the technology is moving so quickly, and there's so much out there that's new and exciting, and there's so many opportunities for jobs and for research and for, whether you're a million other things that are involved with or directly or indirectly involved with forestry, right? There's log drivers, there's biologists. You're talking about welders, millwrights, like you were saying, like a good millwright. Every mill needs like a few good millwrights to keep. Otherwise, like the whole thing falls apart, right?
Yep.
So that's super important towards the environmental integrity of the forest indirectly, but also it's super important. It needs to be there. So yeah, you can be involved if you don't want to be, say you don't want to be involved in the environmental side of it, right? You want to be involved in the education side of it, or you want to be involved in the media side of it, or you want to be involved in the electrician side of it, or accounting, or whatever it is. You can still be involved and like what you do and know that the cause you're supporting is worthwhile, right? So it's rather than just getting a job for some random company that you don't even know what they do really, right? Some giant corporation that's just kind of taken over the world. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up now, but yeah. No, there's a lot of careers out there. So if you guys go online on the WorkWell website, you can look up all the job profiles and job postings, and it's cool. So how many schools do you figure you see every year?
We go to, well, as of this past year, over 100 a year. But now that
That's
we have
awesome.
a new person, we'll be somewhere more like 130 a year.
That's
120,
crazy.
130. Yeah. And so that's just like class presentations.
Yeah.
We talk to, it'll be somewhere around 7,000 students a year
Right.
get the Work Wild Forestry Careers presentation.
Yeah.
And then we also go to career fairs and community events and teacher professional development events to reach out to a broader audience as well.
Oh, that's cool. No, the reason I asked that question is because I'm trying to get a feel for how many people you're getting out to, kind of thing, right? And how many possible careers could come out of this, right? It's interesting because there's, yeah, like I said, there's not a lot of people doing that work, so it's good.
And well, it's a large number, but it's certainly not the whole province. But so we're trying to find ways to get our information out there in far broader reaching ways.
Yeah.
So of course, like you saw some videos, we're making some educational videos, but also right in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be publishing some curriculum supporting lesson plans that we'll have up on our website. There are going to be some really cool resources. Like we have an interactive map where students can hover over the wildlife and the water and the mill and the fire going on over in this part of the forest and all the different considerations in the forest, and then analyze it and really think from multiple perspectives in how we manage our forests. Yeah. So we'll have a few different interactive resources on our site and some lesson plans that support grade 6 science trees and forest unit, COM 20, which is career and life management, and then the CTS forestry course in high school.
Huh, that's cool.
So the hope is we can get into even more schools that way.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that like you were saying before, it's interesting that it takes, a company like this to get that information out there, right? Because like you said, people don't understand the relationship of the forest, right? They think, they see the trees and they're pretty. Oh, there's a bird. It's a nice bird. But they don't understand how that's all related, right? And it is all related. It's all one ecosystem. You can't manage one piece of that and forget about the rest of it, right? It's all one big unit. It's all an ecosystem. So to get kids interested in that, like for example, I had you hooked me up with a young man who's trying to figure out what he wanted to do as a career. A little while back, he came in, and it turns out he's really interested in hydrology. So he wanted to get involved in kind of hydrological management, kind of marine biology, that kind of thing, right? And so he came in, and not that we have anything to do with that really, but I was doing a riparian management deal, kind of some work for a mill. And so he got to see kind of how the hydrology changes on a landscape, how you can go from kind of the top of a mountain where you're just getting some like rainfall and how that kind of collects into smaller little creeks and kind of overflow, and then it turns into a river, and then it turns into, maybe it falls into a fen. So a fen is just a kind of a mossy area where the water kind of spreads out and goes through, but it's still part of the watershed, right? And people don't realize that kind of things, and how that's related to the trees, and how it's related to the birds, and how to the bears, and to the wildfire and all that stuff, right? So that's a cool resource that you guys have. Like I don't think people understand the importance of something like that, of kids being able to see that. Because like realistically, until I started here, I wouldn't say that I had a real understanding of it or perspective of it, because it was not something I had ever realized. I mean, I understood kind of that it's all related, and yeah, you can kind of hear it, but to see it and to be able to hover over it and kind of click on it and look at it, that's super applicable, I think, for kids. It'll get them interested. And
teachers, like a lot of them do know quite a bit about forestry, but it might be about measuring a tree's age and those types of things. But especially teachers that are located in geographical areas that are so far away from forestry, how are they supposed to get this information? We need to provide them with accurate and up-to-date information about how things are, or else they're on their own to try and find that information.
Yeah, no, totally. So speaking about that, so I just don't forget, maybe you can just say how, like if a teacher is listening to this and they want to get a hold of you guys and get somebody to come in, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, if you go to workwild.ca and you can click either on the contact tab or on the teachers tab, either one will send you to pretty much the same place, and you'll find a contact form where you can just send me an email. It goes directly into my inbox, and just let me know where you're located, what grade your students are. We go into grade 6 through 12.
Okay.
And typically science, outdoor education, and any kind of careers, health classes.
Yeah.
And then sometimes like wildlife or construction if you think it's applicable. So just send me a message, let me know what you teach, and approximately what kind of a date range you want, and we'll set it up. We do often book a month or two in advance, especially if it's more than a couple hours from Edmonton, because we just need to plan our trip. So we're going to several places in the same trip. But,
of course.
But yeah, we try and make everything work.
So as far as going into classrooms and stuff like that, what age do you think, like, I wonder if there's an age that you think personally doing so much of this that is like children are the most susceptible to this information? Because I imagine that like maybe there might be people like grade 12, they already know what they want to do type thing, right? There's always like, I didn't know. I was still kind of in limbo, right? But so it would have been useful for me to know. But I wonder if there's a target age group that's like a good one to target, do you think?
When we did the initial research for the program, it seemed that students didn't remember much from the earlier years with regards to career.
Oh, okay.
So that's part of the reason we stay in the higher grades.
Higher ones, yeah.
We do go down to grade 6 because they do trees and forests, and I think it's important that we get into those schools if teachers need that support with that extra forestry information. Yeah. In my experience, I can't say for sure. Yeah. I've seen so many kids and I keep thinking there's a pattern and there's not. Like from one school to the next, or even in the same school from one visit to the next, the kids vary so much. Yeah. Grade 6 is the most fun because they're intellectually at a place where we can discuss things like sustainable forest management, and they get it. They get the big picture, but they're not too cool yet to ask questions and participate. Yeah. So every time I ask a question, there's 30 hands up, eager to share their story or their insights. Yeah. But then again, I've had awesome kids that are older too, and I find especially when I go to targeted groups like a forestry class, and there's not many forestry high school classes across the province, but there are some. Yeah. Those kids are pretty keen to learn. Last week I was at Black Cat Guest Ranch, which is just outside of Hinton, with Rupertsland. They do a Métis environmental career camp.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Oh, it was so good. And these kids are amazing. Yeah. Like the whole time they're engaged. They already know so much about forestry from they've been spending 2.5 weeks out in the forest learning about it.
That's cool.
And these are the kids that are going to this camp in the summer are kids that are thinking about their futures and their planners. And so the questions they ask afterwards, like, how can I make this my career? And what kind of path do I need to go on? Those kids are really receptive.
That's cool. That's an interesting program. I never heard about that one. That's cool. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it seems like those types of programs are coming kind of more available. I don't know a lot about them, but it seems like if you just do a little bit of searching, you can find that kind of stuff, right? So starting with Work Wild, right? That's a good place to start for anybody that doesn't know, right? If there's anybody listening that kind of wants a career change or wants I don't know, start something new. If you're just coming out of high school or whatever, then that's a good place to start. Reach out to you. That's perfect. So you can get your email and stuff on right online there.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep, exactly.
That's cool. So what do you guys have? Like, what's coming up? What's new? Where are you focused now?
Well, we've got the teacher resources or the curriculum resources. Otherwise, just continuing to spread through the province, getting into more areas. So we started in forest communities. Yeah. So there's 70 forest communities throughout Alberta, and we're still going to those communities, but we're really trying to get into more Aboriginal communities and also urban communities. Just reach out to more people and also use different mediums such as videos, trying to find new ways to get content out there. Yeah.
The videos, I think, are a big one. I think especially for even for myself, like my attention span is nothing, right? So I think the videos are really nice. Like I those 3 videos you guys had up, what was it? There was forest products, forest planning and forest operations. Yeah,
good memory.
Yeah, and they're like 3 minutes long, and they do a really, really good job of like even just listening to those videos. I had like a few podcast ideas, right? And I was writing stuff down. I was like, all right, perfect. You guys did a really awesome job of like summarizing everything that goes into that, because it is so complex and interwoven with different aspects from like different careers and all kinds of things, and it was a really good job.
Thank you. I'd like to start also with videos. We have some. I've just recently gotten some video equipment and I'm learning how to make my own videos. I'm pretty amateur still, but I'd like to start interviewing people in the industry. I've done that for years, but it's always been just pictures and text, and I'd like to actually interview people on video and make career profiles on video, because like you say, people have short attention spans. For people to read longer articles, it can be a bit laborious, so it's nice to just sit back and passively absorb.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a good way to do it. And like you said, our attention spans are nothing anymore. So it's important to get that information out there in whatever way you can, right? So that's cool. Yeah, I'll be interested to see. Hopefully you can get some cooperation. Like I find was funny when I started this podcast. People were telling me like, oh, you're gonna have a hard time getting people to come on, right? Getting people to talk. People don't want to open up about what they're talking about. And it's like, well, I'm not like I'm talking about politics here, right? Like I want to keep this as fact based as possible. I want to keep it scientific and keep it real, right? I don't want to get into things where people are arguing because it's hearsay. It's not really truth, right? So, but I find it kind of the opposite. I don't think you'll have a problem finding people to come on, right? Especially if you're asking them in person, like it's going to be, I think people will be willing to do it. Right? Especially if it's just a quick thing, like you sit down for 10, 15 minutes and just discuss what they do. Because people can do that about their own careers, right? Hopefully it stays interesting and they don't labor on about something unimportant, but that's what editing's for.
Yeah. I find I've been interviewing a few people, not for career profiles, but for other types of videos. And people think it's, they get irrationally nervous about it. Like they think it's so much more serious and that they're going to be destroyed if they mess something up. Like editing is a beautiful thing. You can take out any, you can take out any, like misspeaking.
Oh yeah. Like I had to do a couple, I don't do a lot of editing for this one because we were talking about that earlier, but yeah, it's that I try to keep this one as natural. I don't want to turn it into this big production, but for video purposes, I think it's needed, right? Because I can go on forever. Like we've been talking for 40 minutes now. We could go on for another hour if we wanted to, and it wouldn't be a problem, right? We just keep going, right? But yeah, I remember my first couple podcasts, I did have to edit a couple things out because it was interruptions and just some nonsense that I went into that should have not been involved, right? Yeah, no, that's interesting. So yeah, no, it's kind of cool how all these things are finally coming together in the forest industry, because for years I know, kind of growing up in the industry with my parents and that, seeing how nobody really, you say the word forester and nobody knows what that is, right? And like, oh, like what do you, so you're in a machine cutting down trees, and you're like, well, that is a job you can get, and it's a cool job, but no, like there's other things, right? So there's a wide variety of things for people that can get involved with, and it's hard to get that information out there, and hopefully with Work Wild you guys can succeed. It seems like it's working. Yeah. So you said that the enrollment at the U of A went up quite a bit. You said in the last couple of years.
I think it's at its lowest, they had 6 first years, I think, in 2010.
Yeah.
And now they are up to somewhere around 25, might be 24.
Yeah.
But that's a huge increase. Like it's still not a huge program, but relative to 6, that's really big. And I think they're at their capacity now. So.
Oh, are they? Okay.
Yeah, cool. And then NAIT as well. They were down quite low, somewhere around 30 first years.
Yeah.
And now they're getting so many applicants. I think they're somewhere close to like 180, 200 applicants for first year. And they're having to turn away a bunch of people. And they had to increase their program capacity. Last year, they increased it to 50. I've heard that this year they've increased it again, but I don't have confirmation on what the number is.
Right.
But that's really great, because we need to address the massive baby boomer retirement that's happening right now, and foresters are old on average. We need to replace them.
Yeah, I don't know what the number is, but the average age of a forester in the province has got to be what? You got it right there?
I have some numbers. Yeah, so FPAC, so Forest Products Association of Canada. So this is all of Canada. Unfortunately, I don't have Alberta for this one, but more than half of the workforce is over 45 years old.
Wow.
And then CAPF, which is now, well, it was the College of Alberta Professional Foresters. Now it's joined with the Forest Techs. They said between 2012 and 2022, 36% of Alberta foresters are expected to retire.
Wow.
And with 6 students in 2010 going into forestry first year in Alberta, it's not gonna replace that.
No, I graduated from the U of A in 2012. There were 7 of us in the graduating class. So
small.
Oh, it was tiny. It was
probably easy to find a job. But.
Yeah. Well, I think there was a year or two where there was like 2 or 3 people.
Wow.
Like it was pretty bad. Like there was always people in the program, but graduating, it was like people would
lose a few.
Yeah, you lose people to other stuff, and that's fine, right? There's lots of good careers out there that involved in all kinds of different things, and if forestry was your path to that, perfect. That's awesome. I'm just glad you could find your passion, right? Like some people might. I think it's worthwhile for people if you are outdoor oriented at all. Like if you're interested in any kind of nature aspect or whatever, and you don't know what you want to do. Try going to NAIT, become a tech. And like if you do a year and you decide you don't like it, you can always change, right? But at least you tried something outside the norm and something different that you might like, right? Rather than defaulting to whatever,
And even
Occupation
before you do that, when you're still in high school, if anyone here is in high school or knows anyone in high school who loves the outdoors, a really great opportunity is Alberta Junior Forest Rangers.
Oh yeah,
It's a summer job for high school students. You spend the whole summer outside. You're learning about natural resource management, wildfire prevention, wildlife conservation, all sorts of stuff. I was just at their final Bull of the Woods competition last week, and they have so much fun. I've never talked to a JFR JFR is the short term for Junior Forest Rangers, who hasn't loved the summer. And it's a really great way to expose yourself to potential careers. Like, I've talked to former JFRs who decided they want to become a forest technologist because they met one in the summer and they were inspired and they want to do that career. You'll meet wildlife biologists, you'll meet wildland firefighters, all sorts of different people. It's a really great way to expose yourself and help you make a decision about what kind of career you want to have.
Yeah, no, I worked with some of them when I was doing Helitac for a few years there, and they were super gung-ho and just excited to be out there trying different things, right? And that's an awesome program, the Junior Forest Rangers program. It's been around a long time too.
Yeah, they had I think it was their 50th anniversary a couple of years ago.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. I'm not sure about the Junior Forest Wardens. Like, I was in Junior Forest Wardens when I was a kid, which is for like younger age groups, right? I think Rangers, what's the age range for that?
Rangers is 16 to 18, and it's a job.
Right, it's a job, yeah. And then Junior Forest Wardens is kind of it's just an after school kind of club, right? And for example, my parents ran it when I was doing it, and we would go out and we'd go camping in the wintertime. Sounds brutal, but it's fun. You learn how to like build a lean-to, right, out of sticks and logs and that, and then you have a fire and you learn how to boil water and to build a fire, and you learn about animal tracks, and you learn about kind of vegetation, and you learn about wetlands, and you learn about all that kind of stuff, right? And at a young age, and that's definitely what it helped me find my career for sure. I kind of had an unfair advantage being the son of two foresters. For a long time, it was funny. I wanted to stay away from it because it was so cliche, right? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just going to be like the forester's son forester again, right? Like I didn't want to do that. So I was looking into becoming a cop or becoming like a helicopter pilot or something. And then in the end, it just all kind of, I was like, no, I care about nature and about those things being around for generations. So like, that's what I'm going to do. That's what it's going to be. So
at what point did you stop running away from your fate?
Honestly, it was late. Like, it was like probably last year of high school, if not grade 11 or 12. Like,
that's pretty early though. A lot of people have no idea until they're 20, 25.
Yeah. Well, I was still, I mean, that's the thing. It's not like I knew inherently that's what I wanted to do. Right. And I think some kids might get kind of worried. They're like, I don't know what I want to do yet. Like, I'm 18. Like, what do I do? I don't understand. Not that 18 is a kid, but sorry if I offended anybody. But, yeah, I think people think that you're supposed to know inherently what you want to do, and if you don't know, there's something wrong with you. And that's not true. Like, it's this random path that you just kind of start aiming yourself in a direction. You kind of adjust course as you go, right? And so, like, I didn't know inherently that I wanted to be a forester. I knew that I liked forestry, and I knew what it entailed, and I liked the idea of being involved in that. So I went in that direction. And by the time I was in third year, then I was committed. Third year university, I was like, yeah, this is definitely where I want to be. Definitely want to make a difference. This is for me. But it took me till then. Like, I spent 2 years before that kind of going like, I don't know. But the first 2 years suck in the university because you're just doing calculus and chemistry and all this crap that has nothing to do with forestry, right? But it's interesting that navigation of the world, right? Like, it's hard to find. And I mean, there's people who are 35 years old who are just going back to university or going back to NAIT or going back to SAIT or wherever it is to try and figure out what it is that they want to do, right? So it's not anybody out there that feels discouraged about not knowing what they want to do, don't feel bad. Like, look at yourself, right? Like, I don't think you ever imagined you'd be working in the forest industry.
Never.
Right? Yeah. So yeah, it's a crazy ride for sure.
Well, and even for like, you study forestry, it sounds really specific, but you can go into silviculture, you can go into operations, you can go into planning. There's all these different areas. Or what you're doing is even, you're not working for a typical forestry company. You're doing other work. So yeah, there's so many opportunities, and you can change it up if you want. In 5 years, if you're bored, you can go take another path.
That's the thing. Yeah. Like, the college is, they're allowing for people to, like, not allowing, but like they're creating situations where they're making it easy for people to change career paths and do different things. And kind of, it's not like, oh, you get into forestry, you're cutting down trees, that's it. It's like, no, I feel like an education in forestry is an awesome way to just be exposed to a lot of different things, a lot of different aspects of the world. And you may find that forestry is not for you, but you may find yourself along the way, right? There's a lot of, I mean, we do all kinds of, you have to know economics, you have to know statistics, you have to know math, you have to know about the environment, you have to know dendrology, hydrology, you have to know so many different things. And so it's a good exposure, I think, if nothing else, right? But it's, I implore any young person out there to look into it, whether it's forestry or if it's biology or if it's, like you were saying, millwright, welder, accountant, electrician. If you're interested in the natural world, you can do those things and make a difference, right? So,
and a lot of the communities that these forestry companies operate in are absolutely beautiful. Like you grew up in a forest community, surrounded by forests. Some of them are surrounded by, well, yours also, Slave Lake, was surrounded by a beautiful lake.
Yeah.
And then some of them even have mountains right nearby, or surrounded. Like Grand Cache is surrounded by mountains. It's amazing.
Oh, they're nestled right in these beautiful little communities, right? Where you have I guess you're directly close to like rivers and lakes and wildlife and all of these resources that are right there that you can use, right? And you don't usually get that in the city, right? And I mean, I live in the city, but I get the opportunity to see the whole province, right? Because we work for a multitude of different companies from all over the place, right? So it's a beautiful place to live. Like, I love growing up in Slave Lake. It was awesome. I have a hard time not going back there because of the location. It's just such a perfect spot, right? Like, there all the things that I love to do, like fishing and hiking and hunting, and just waking up in the morning and going onto your deck and breathing in fresh forest air, not
exhaust.
not exhaust fumes or brake dust, right? So, but yeah, living in those communities is awesome. Super beneficial. I think just healthy for the soul, really, right? So, I mean, people want to be where the action is in the city, right?
Where the Starbucks is.
Yeah, where the Starbucks is at, right? Or Chapters or whatever it is that you're into, right? But yeah, it's there's definitely opportunities there for people if they want to check them out. I think that covered. I think we pretty much covered the gamut of things I wanted to discuss for sure. But if you ever want to come on again, and if you guys have something you're trying to promote or whatever, just come on, let me know, and we can talk about those kind of things, because it's I think this is a perfect conversation for us to have. Yeah.
And if anyone wants any more, workwild.ca is where you go.
Yeah, workwild.ca. Do you want to give out your email or just workwild.ca?
Mike, if you just click the contact form, it goes straight to my email.
It's all there.
On the Workwild website.
Perfect. And if you guys have any questions for me, just send it to yourforestpodcast@gmail.com, and I'll get back to you, or I'll address it on the podcast. So far, I've got no questions. That's okay.
One day.
Things to strive for, right?
I tried to review the podcast last night, but it wasn't letting me press.
It's weird. I don't know. There's something wrong with the review process. I know I tried to get some friends to do it when I first started it out. And yeah, some people it would work, some people it wouldn't.
There were some reviews on there.
Yeah, there's some on there. And it's really odd. I don't know what's going on with it. I think you have to be signed into iTunes when you're trying to review it, but you also can't I know if I go into the podcast app right now, it's not just there. I can't just go, hey, review and go down, or you have to go search it, and it's really odd for Apple to not be super user friendly that way. But
I even wrote up a review and then it wouldn't let me press send.
When did you press it? See that happened to somebody else. I think my sister tried to do it, and same thing, because I was trying to see if it would work, right? And she tried, and it wasn't working. I think you have to be hooked up to Wi-Fi too. I think that might be another thing.
Okay.
I don't know. I looked it up. I Googled it the other day, and iTunes, they're just like, oh yeah, we have some problems with that. I don't know. I'm like, well, that's helpful. Thanks.
So sad. You're trying to start up a new podcast. You've got so many lost reviews that aren't actually going up there.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I don't know how many people can't get through, and I apologize for that, but it's not my fault.
Keep trying.
Keep trying. Yeah, eventually it'll work. Try different things. Maybe try on a different platform.
I saved my review in my notes, so I'll try again later.
Okay, awesome. Cool. Yeah. No, wow, that Anne girl, she's really smart. I want to be like her. Perfect. Like, oh wow, somebody really likes Anne. I better have her on again. Yeah.
That wasn't me.
Yeah. That's awesome. Cool. Well, thanks a lot for listening, guys. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll hopefully have you on again. We can go more in depth about maybe some more specific things. So cool. Thanks a lot, guys.